Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel, where in today's video I wanted to dedicate it to answering tough questions in interviews and just kind of going through each video with a new example and just breaking it down from a recruiter's point of view, as well as also talking about from my own experience historically how I've kind of answered these questions as well, and obviously as a recruiter what I like to see in a candidate as they answer this question as well. So to start off with, the first question I'm going to be running through for today's episode is along the lines of, what did you dislike about your last job or your last boss? Okay. Now, this question itself, personally, as a recruiter, I try to avoid asking it. I really don't like asking it. The main reason why I think recruiters would even ask this question is they want to understand what you don't enjoy in an environment, or what type of environment is not going to get the best out of you, if that makes sense. And I think as well, what you'll realize is a lot of people, a lot of things that something that recruiters do quite often is they'll hear you say one answer, but they'll draw a completely different conclusion. And it's not in a bad way, but it's just kind of reading between the lines, if that makes sense. So this is a great question where, from a recruiter's point of view, and I guess you'll find with people in general, is like you ask these types of questions, you'll get an answer, but you'll also then get another answer essentially without them even saying it. So it's like something along the lines of, could be like, oh, I hated my boss because, every time they would go it would every time I'd make a mistake, they would let me know about it. And then they would kind of interpret that as like, oh, okay, maybe they don't like accountability, if that makes sense. So something like that. It's a very easy way to just kind of get a little bit more out of the candidate without them directly saying it. Now, for me personally, I hate negatively framed questions. I just think it's very unproductive. And I think as well, it kind of throws the candidate off as well. Because obviously, when you guys go into these interviews, you're preparing, star answering and all these other different things. The last thing you're thinking about is to outline a genuinely negative thing about your past experience. And you also, you don't want to be actually saying something negative. You don't want to then overthink your answer, but then you don't want to be stressed in the moments. Then all these different emotions come in, and then you're feeling overwhelmed before you know it. Okay. So, what did you dislike about your last job, or I should have said last boss, or your current boss, essentially? Now, what you're not going to do in this situation is get emotionally invested. This is a thing that catches a lot of candidates out. Okay, is that they will answer this question and they will start being very emotional. They'll be like, oh, my boss was rude. My boss was offensive. My boss had such unrealistic expectations of me. My boss did this. My boss did that, blah, blah, blah. All these different things. And at the end of the day, guys, that is the last thing you ever want to do, is emotionally dump information on the recruiter or the hiring manager. Okay. It is extremely unproductive. Okay. Because at the end of the day, all that does to us is it just paints a picture that you're happy to throw somebody under the bus when they're not here to defend themselves. And at the end of the day, all we can do in this situation is believe you and take your side of the story. So you have to be very careful, because you have to remember, guys, all right, even if your boss is the worst person on earth, like let's just say they're genuinely horrible to you, okay? Even if that is all true and you decide to just dump all that on us in your first ever interview, your first ever interaction with us, all that does to us is it just, you have to remember, we weren't in that experience with you. We didn't live that day to day with you. Okay. So your very first conversation with us, you're already talking extremely negative about an authority figure. It's going to either rub the recruiter the wrong way, or it's going to get them thinking at the very, very least, this person's a liability, or there's going to be something off about them, rather than, you just answering the question and being on a nice medium scale the whole way through. Instead, we're going massive emotional dips from the very, very start. Okay. And you don't want to do that. Okay. So the first thing you don't want to do is genuinely get emotionally invested in this answer. And secondly, what you don't want to be doing is genuinely listing negatives about your boss or about your company. Okay. So I can point out to you all the things I don't want to see. What are the things we do want to see? So moving into the second part of this video is flip the script. Okay. Turn the negative into a positive. Okay. So basically what you guys want to do in these type of situations is, if you're here to say, something you didn't like about your boss, a good example I always give to my own students is, let's just say you wish you had more exposure to your boss. You wish you had more conversations because you really prioritize learning. Okay, there we go. Something like that is so simple, but so effective. Okay, because from now, what I see is, I see a candidate who values getting information and getting educated from authority figures. I see somebody who is respectful to his bosses. and I see somebody who is hungry to learn and actually wants to grow in this job and in this industry, and genuinely saw that as a negative, that he wasn't able to get that exposure from his last company. Okay, rather than him going, oh, my boss was never here, he was always busy, and he was never in the office, and I could never talk to him. It's too negative. You're throwing him under the bus too much. You know, you have to position it differently. You got to be like, oh, look, he was a fantastic boss. I always had a lot of time for him. But I guess the only thing I would have changed if I had any power was I would have loved to have just seen him a little bit more, because every time I did speak to him, I gained so much knowledge. I would have loved to have just maybe had a little bit more time with him so I could just keep learning and, accelerate my own knowledge that even more. You know what I mean? Something along those lines is really going to give them a better picture as to who you are and what you prioritize in a job, rather than coming in from an emotional standpoint, throwing somebody who they don't know under the bus and getting them invested into all of this drama when they didn't ask anything about that. And the next thing you know, you've spent 4 or 5 minutes just talking badly about somebody, and it's unproductive because one, you're not selling yourself. Two, you're not explaining anything that's relevant to them. And three, you're not answering the question. You know what I mean? So it's things like that we just got to make sure, guys, that we're positioning ourselves as best as possible for with these interview questions. Okay? Even better, guys, like if you can tie it into something that's important to them, like for example, if you've gone through the job description and they've now said, we want a candidate who is hungry, or just something, generic like that, you can be like, and as I noticed that you guys obviously prioritize, candidates, or you're ideally looking for a candidate who is hungry in the industry. That's where I see alignment, at least, because that's what I'm hoping I'll be able to get in this company, is that extra exposure or that extra connection with an authority figure or somebody higher than me, because I really want to learn and I really want to grow in this industry. Things like that is what's going to show them that you are a hungry candidate and that you are a go-getter, and not somebody who's going to throw other people under the bus. Okay, they want somebody who's going to take responsibility and show them that from the minute they hit the ground running, or the minute they get into the job, they're going to hit the ground running. Okay. Now, I thought I had an extra slide. My apologies. Now, the reason why this is also so important, and I've realized it for myself, and why I really back this type of thinking, is I've done that. Okay, so I was actually going for a recruitment position. I was working at another company, and as much as I enjoyed the job, as much as I enjoyed what I was doing, I realized very, very quickly that I was getting thrown in the deep end quite a lot. I was taking on a lot of responsibility, but without the proper education. It was a lot of just like figure it out as you go. Now, I'm somebody that I like structure. I like a process. Even if, like, let's say I was given those tasks and I absolutely smashed it, it meant nothing to me, because if I had to do it again, I wouldn't know how. You know what I mean? I wanted that senior guidance. And I was very transparent about that when I was going through these interviews at my company. And they noticed that straight away. They noticed that I was hungry to be a recruiter. They knew that I was respectful of the environment that I used to be in, but they just understood that, as much as I enjoy the work I do, I want that proper support and that proper implementation with my work, and have somebody to work with. So when I'm learning and I'm growing as a recruiter, I've got the people around me to support me and show me what to do and what not to do. You know what I mean? That's all it was. And once they understood that, they obviously understood that, I'm somebody that genuinely wants to work in the industry. But secondly, I take full responsibility. I'm not there throwing anybody under the bus around me. I'm simply just saying, look, this was my situation. I really enjoyed the work that I did, but I want to be in an environment where I can learn in a much more structured manner, rather than just kind of that single swim mindset, because it's great when it's good, okay? But then when there's dips and then you don't know how to get out of it, it's a whole other story. You know what I mean? And they understood that and they respected that, and they ended up getting the job. So I've lived through that experience, guys. It's the exact same method that I teach my own students. Okay? I hope you guys got some value from today's video. If you guys enjoyed and you'd like to work with me on a one-to-one level, or learn more about how to implement these practices to your own background, feel free to click the links below. I hope you guys enjoyed again. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next episode.